My name's Gordon Steve Green, and I was born and raised in Oakland County, Michigan. Before 2006, I was a healthy young man. I worked in several different venues, being from the Motor City area. I worked in automotive manufacturing. I ran a assembly line as a line leader. And after that, I continued my education and became a master mechanic. I worked for several GM dealerships, ultimately moving up to service manager. I also worked at a Mercedes-Benz dealership as an assistant service manager.
Wow, you sound like you've had quite a lot of different occupations and stuff.
Yeah, they all tend to run along the same lines. Like I said, from the Motor City, they all tend to be somewhat automotive related. And I enjoyed my job. I did well at it, and I made a good living for my family. I have 3 children from my ex-marriage, and then I have a stepchild, and we have a new baby that's 5 months old.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. In 2006, unfortunately, I experienced my first epileptic seizure. I was carrying in some groceries from the car. Luckily, the children were in the car sleeping and didn't have to witness that. And then after my first seizure, it just began like an avalanche effect, and I began having more and more seizures. And I went from one hospital to another, one neurologist to another. I got several different diagnoses over the time. I spent 2 years with a multiple sclerosis diagnosis that they've later disconfirmed. But during that time, I followed all the doctor's advice, and my mother's a nurse, retired now, and I really had a strong belief in the medical system and that they were going to do everything they could to help me. I believe some of them did, and I believe other ones may not have necessarily had all of my best interest at heart. I went through a series of between 8 and 12 different anti-epileptic medications. Those medications, some worked a little bit better than others. All of them had horrible side effects for me, and none of them completely stopped or completely controlled my seizures. Also during that time, with having that amount of grand mal tonic-clonic type seizures, I would have falls and injuries. I was at an ATM machine one time, stuck my card in and woke up to a puddle of blood. I had fallen over and had a seizure, hit my head on the curb. And at that time, you get transported to the hospital, and they decide that you need to be on other medications. Some of the injuries that I sustained were back traumas from falling downstairs with seizures and stuff. So I have several compression fractures in my spine, which then obviously led me to narcotic pain medications. Some of those that I was on were morphine, fentanyl, dilated, several other heavy-duty medications. All of those medications, after being a cannabis patient, I've been able to take myself off of.
Really?
Yes, and it's not an easy task for anyone that's ever had an opiate addiction. And when I say opiate addiction, I don't mean to say it in a negative way, because if you take an opiate for 7 days, 3 times a day, you become physically dependent on that drug. It's no longer a choice of whether you want to be an addict or not. Your body chemistry makes you an addict. And so when I say that, I don't say addiction in the sense that somebody's out chasing the drug, but they are physically dependent on that drug. So each one of those drugs that I did have to discontinue, that I chose to discontinue, I had to suffer, withdrawal symptoms, probably about 2 weeks of extreme vomiting and hot and cold spells, and twice as much pain as what you had before the fact, because your receptors are shut down, so there's an increased amount of pain, both real and false. I was able to, like I said, get off all those medications, and the thing that really did it for me was the cannabis oil.
How did you discover the cannabis oil might benefit you?
Well, when I first started as a medical marijuana patient, it was my primary care doctor that said, we've ran out of options. We've tried everything there is that I have to offer you out of this book of, drugs and such. We've tried different diets. We've tried, different alternative therapies. So he said, we're just going to have to go, try this cannabis. So initially I, got the medical marijuana card and did what I would assume everyone does, go out and get some cannabis and smoke it. And I experienced an increasingly amount of benefit from it, where I could reduce other prescriptions, and after I would have a seizure, it would, really bring me back and help me to recover from the pain and the muscle spasms and all the things associated with after a seizure. But I just didn't experience what I was hoping for. I didn't get the control and the stopping of the seizures. And so that's when my wife was my caregiver, and she really just dove in with everything she had. She got a job at a hydro store. She did more research than I would ever imagine someone would do, and really just reached out to not only the people in our area, but other people that have experienced benefits. We asked them what they were doing and tried to get some other resources, and we talked with people like Rick Simpson and some other people that had epilepsy, and what we heard from everyone was what great success they were having. But it seemed that all the success, or a lot of the success that they were having, was based on taking it in an edible form. So we thought, well, maybe the smoking's not necessarily the best method for me. So we tried, cooking it into foods and things like that, and experienced, again, a little bit more benefit to it, but it didn't completely stop the seizures. There was a reduction at that point, but again, it didn't completely stop them. So that's when we went to the next step and figured if we did an extraction to where we could have a concentrated level, we would just bump up my dose periodically over about 6 months. We would continue to bump the dose up and experiment with different strains, different types. We tried grinding up the marijuana, tried making it with different chemical extractions, with different mechanical extractions and things like that. And we got our hands on a high CBD rich plant that's about 14% CBD with under 1% THC. And typically that's not anything that someone would chase down, or something that's even really common or popular. But we had heard a lot of good things about it, and so we decided to dive in at that as well. We tried everything else, and at this point, if you would have told me eating tree bark would stop my seizures, I would eat tree bark like a fiend. So at that point, I was just willing to try anything. So we went on to this high CBD, and it worked a little bit better. We would concentrate it, make it into an oil, and put it into like a capsule that you get at the health food store, gelatin capsule type thing. And again, worked on bumping the doses and playing with how much and when to take it. We were able to, within a couple of months of starting the cannabis oil, find what was the right dose for me, and we were able to completely stop my seizures.
Completely stop?
Completely stop my seizures.
Now these tonic-clonic seizures?
Yes, grand mal tonic-clonic seizures. And the frequency that I was suffering from seizures was nearly 100 a year. So it wasn't a mild condition. And as I stated, with trying all the different pharmaceutical drugs, I had a fair response with one called Keppra, and that was able to reduce my seizures to maybe 1 to 3 a week, 1 to 3 a month if I was real lucky.
So you actually ran the gamut on pharmaceutical meds for your seizures, and without relief?
Absolutely, and a lot of those seizure medications damage your liver and other organs, like Dilantin is one where you have to constantly every 2 weeks get a blood test to make sure the level is appropriate and that there's not any liver function damage. When I was told that, it was really a scary thing to know that what I'm taking to try to help me is actually damaging me. And so that was a scary substance to take. And so that was one of the friendly things I found about cannabis, is throughout all of our research and throughout, diving in and talking to all these people for as long as we could look back, we never found anyone that suffered any liver damage or death or any negative side effects from using marijuana in a regular or concentrated form. And so once we really, like I said, nailed down what strain and types worked for me, we were able to start a regimen. And then I took that regimen every day. And the last seizure that I had was on my birthday, December 2nd of 2011. From that point on, I did not have another seizure while I maintained that level. I would take 2 CBD capsules in the morning, and then that would kind of give me some extra energy throughout the day as well. But I also found that I needed to take some of the THC at night to kind of bring me back down and allow me to sleep and be able to benefit from the rest. That was something I noticed with my epilepsy, was kind of a trigger, was if I was really overwhelmed or lack of sleep would kind of trigger more seizures. So it was very crucial to me that I was able to get a good night's rest. Yeah, the sleep is, any doctor or professional would tell you that, a good night's sleep is one of the best medicines you can have. So that was essential that I be able to get a good night's rest. And then, like I said, for almost 2 years, I didn't suffer a single seizure of any kind. And we found that to be remarkable. And some of my doctors, even after the fact, would maybe refer other patients to talk to me. If they had a patient that they had, again, ran through the gamut of drugs and things like that. I started receiving a lot of calls from people that had opiate addictions and had been on Oxycontins and morphine and fentanyl and these types of drugs for a long period of time. Because as I was able to talk about my epileptic condition and what cannabis did for me, like I said, there was so many other drugs I was on that were kind of a domino effect, and all of those other drugs were also able to be stopped. And so as I sit here before you, I'm not on a single prescription drug.
Really?
Absolutely.
You were on some heavy-duty prescriptions.
Yeah.
And you were able to end all of those.
I ended all of the prescription drugs.
Does it continue to provide benefit for you?
Cannabis has always benefited me medically. Unfortunately, currently I'm suffering a bit of a dilemma. Like I said, I was a registered patient from my primary care doctor, but unfortunately, due to the circumstances, the police had executed a search warrant that my caregiver was growing the medical marijuana. When that was executed, they then charged me as well as my caregiver for the 29 marijuana plants they say they found. And so up until this last January, when this arrest and such occurred, I would have nothing negative at all to say about cannabis. It had been absolutely wonderful and a godsend to me. But currently, as I fight a legal battle, and the judge has revoked my ability to use cannabis.
Oh my God.
So I have since then suffered 2 minor seizures. But between me, my family, and my own decisions, I chose not to go back to pharmaceutical drugs. So it's a little risky, but I feel that the cannabis can do everything for me that the pharmaceuticals could not do for me. And so my intention is to, again, hopefully be able to use the cannabis to benefit my health. But until then, that would be the only negative effects I've had at all from my cannabis use, is the legal system. Even the social stigma, once somebody talks to me and is able to find out, how many medications I quit or how serious of a condition I have, I haven't found anyone that wasn't supportive of using it, which I thought at the beginning was going to be maybe a problem, maybe at my church or maybe at some family functions or different events. I would be ridiculed or suffer some negative stigma from it. And I'm happy and pleased to tell you that I haven't suffered that. It's quite the contrary, even the opposite. I had the other day I was at a shopping store and I had a gentleman come up to me. I had a Cannabis shirt on, and he came up to me and started talking to me about cannabis, and he said, have you heard the story of this guy that has epilepsy? And what he actually did is he kind of told me my story.
Oh, that's remarkable.
And so we chatted for a little while, and I asked him a little bit about himself, and he was an 83-year-old man that had never used marijuana at all, but he thought it was wonderful that I was able to find something, he even quoted, that God gave you.
Awesome.
So that was really a remarkable, from that age and genre, to have someone that was encouraging, and he said, don't stop it. Whatever you do, young man, don't stop it.
Oh, that's excellent. So where do we go from here? Where does Michigan go from here?
That's a very good question. As you guys know, there was a new Court of Appeals ruling where they think that people should only smoke marijuana, and that's something that right now, fortunately, I don't have to, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I don't have to worry about, because I'm banned from using the cannabis oil per a court order. But other people, around the state that are using this and benefiting just as much as me, but maybe not wanting to come out and speak about it or be public about it, those people are all now absolutely terrified. Some of the children that we know in the state that have their medical marijuana cards that are benefiting so much from cannabis oil and edibles, they're now wondering, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to have their kids smoke marijuana? The intention of everyone I know that has a medical marijuana card was to be lawful, to follow the rules. There's a policy and a procedure you have to go through to get one of these medical marijuana cards, and it's not always an easy task. Especially with children, they have to get two independent doctors to both sign on to their certification saying that they would medically benefit or therapeutically benefit from cannabis. It's hard to get two doctors to agree on anything. So when you do something like that, it really shows that they must believe in it or have seen the benefit before. And so, like I said, it's no easy task to get one of these cards, and you have to pay the state. You have to go through a process where you give them your home address and where you live and where you're going to grow at, and all those different things. And nobody that I know is going out and getting a medical marijuana card, registering, giving all their information in to break the law. They're doing this specific process to follow the law. And what it's come down to is it seems like it's really just made a list of targets for them. And that's really unfortunate that the people that are doing what we wanted them to do and trying to follow the rules are now being hunted down or persecuted.
Sounds like patients need to step up, need to be heard from.
Yeah, definitely. That's something I encourage, and I know it's a scary thing for a lot of patients to either sit in front of a camera or come down to the House of Representatives or speak out, because as they see this happen, they say, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want him to come after me as well. So if I just don't speak out, maybe I'll be safer. And I think the tide has changed. I think that in order to get that safety net, you have to come out, you have to speak about it, and you have to let your representatives know in a public venue that this is what is working for you, or this is what you endorse, as a citizen and a voter, and kind of reinforce it to them that this is something we need. And every time that it's undermined in any extent, it's hurting the people that are trying to follow the law. It's time that patients and caregivers, and most importantly the people that aren't patients and caregivers, that have a family member or a friend that they've seen benefit. For instance, myself, I have a sister that's a very conservative person, and when I initially got the medical marijuana, she thought, wow, this is just another drug. All you did is add another drug to the list of drugs you're on. And a year later, she said, I can't believe you're off all those drugs, and what a benefit it's done. And she was able to encourage one of her friends in Arizona that has multiple sclerosis to give it a shot.
There you go.
And it's extremely benefited that person. One of the drugs they were on was Oxycontin.
Mm-hmm.
They're no longer on that Oxycontin.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, that's the way it's done. But we need all patients to stand up, don't we?
Yes.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this.